Let's talk about the Twitter thing that Lydia just brought this up a second ago. We have this story from Timcast.com. Twitter announces new expansion of its private information policy. The announcement has been noted for its vague language by Twitter users. So this is basically media that they deem to be private will be banned. They can now ban you. And they say in the rules explicitly that if you are not abusing someone, then they can still remove you now because they have a new rule set. This will mean independent journalists. It will mean that reporters on the ground who happen to be filming certain activists doing something will get all of that content removed. They then came out and said, well, we'll clarify. If it's a big protest or it's newsworthy, we'll consider the context. What does that mean? Andy Ngo is a great example. Andy Ngo is a journalist, and the left absolutely despises him because he reports on what Antifa and these other individuals are doing. So naturally, Twitter's probably going to say, oh, this is exposing activists, and it's really dangerous because they literally, in their rules, say activists, dissidents, women, and minorities are the most vulnerable. Now, if you, Matt, for instance, you went to Loudoun County, right? Mm-hmm. And you spoke there, they're not going to protect you. They're going to say, if a video comes out of you and you say, hey, look, this is a private video from an event, it's really bad for me as an activist, they're going to say, shut your mouth. They're going to say, oh, you don't count. You're not an activist. Andy Ngo is not a journalist. He doesn't deserve any protections.
I kind of feel like this is an expansion of their policy that they informally put in place with the Hunter Biden stuff. Because wasn't their argument that this was acquired through, untoward means or whatever, like through actual
illegal ways, illegally obtained?
Right.
I mean, they just should have saved everyone some time and just said future Project Veritas will no longer be allowed on the platform. That would have been more honest, because if you look at who this is going to affect, it's going to be investigative journalists, muckrakers.
It's literally Veritas.
Yes, it's literally. I mean, they just should have said, this policy, no more Project Veritas videos on top of people sharing those videos. It's done. That's it.
It's also, people are parsing this on Twitter and saying, what does this mean? What about this? What about that? Well, that's the point. The ambiguity is the point. It's supposed to be vague because then that gives them the ability to decide. So they can just kind of decide, well, we're going to get rid of Project Veritas. We're not going to let another Rittenhouse situation happen ever again. They're saying where these videos come out to expose the truth. But then, of course, because the other thing is, well, what about all these cop videos? I mean, the George Floyd video, Derek Chauvin did not consent to having that video out there. But we can assume that all the cop videos are going to still be allowed, but they'll just be able to decide in the moment, and that's exactly what they're setting themselves up for.
It's the increasing movement towards homogenizing our culture once again. So it used to be we had a few media channels. Everybody listened to Walter Cronkite, just believed whatever he said, whether it was true or not. Everyone assumed it was true. And then with the birth of the internet, we had all of these different voices rising up. Boy, did they get mad when Alex Jones was getting hundreds of millions of views. We never approved this guy, so saith the establishment. So they get rid of him. They get rid of Milo. They get rid of Laura Loomer. They get rid of all these undesirables. Now, they got to contend with the fact that there's still dissident voices that are doing pretty well because people want and crave freedom and honesty and information. Oh, so they'll want to get rid of us. They don't like that, we have a show where we challenge the establishment. So what we're going to see with this, with Twitter's, policy is Project Veritas got to go. Andy Ngo's reporting got to go. If we do, we did a story on Fauci's, the NIAID funding monkey maximum pain experiments. Yeah. Oh, no, you can't publish those photos or that information about Fauci. It's private information. They will just decide. They've already done it with the Hunter Biden laptop story. They don't care about hacked information. Tons of hacked information has come up. They don't block it. Now they're just formalizing the rule and letting you know. The end result of this is over the next several years, eventually everyone will just be watching CNN. A lot of people say CNN's ratings are in the gutter. CNN got 100 million views on YouTube this month. We, on this show, I think, got like 25.
Right.
Timcast altogether maybe has like 40. So that's great. That's awesome. CNN is being given 100 million views. We fight for that. We work every day. We tell everyone, we beg, we drop on, we get down and we say, please, listener, share this video because we aren't being promoted the way CNN is by YouTube. And they get free money, free promotion.
You're thriving in spite of everything that YouTube. It's the same thing that the Daily Wire, where I work at the Daily Wire. We do really well on Facebook. And the corporate media is always putting out these like exposés about, look how well the Daily Wire is doing on Facebook. Obviously, Facebook favors right-wing content, or look what Facebook is doing to help out the Daily Wire. It's absurd, of course. We're doing well in spite of everything Facebook has done to stifle it. But this is just their way of getting rid of the competition. They don't like the fact that we do. And the reason why we do well is because people actually want this content, because they're looking for just common sense and truth and that sort of thing.
It may be that we are wading through the muck and the mire, and the water seems to be rising, trying to hold us back, but they're losing. They're losing. When I look at how explosive the Daily Wire has been, like what you guys have been doing, they can't stop you. Dude, you're gonna shatter through that. They set up this barrier trying to hold you guys back, but you're breaking through it.
CNN is on life support. It's like they're on a gurney being wheeled out in front of the White House, and they're like, everyone's like, "Hey, look, put all the cameras on CNN right now," and it's like, it's obvious that that's a dying art form.
Pretty clear.
Yeah. There's this episode of The Outer Limits where this really old guy, death is trying to take him to the other side, but he's super rich, so he pays people to keep giving him new hearts, and he's on his 6th heart transplant. That's CNN.
Yes.
They're just like Ian explained it, but it's worse than that. They're like, old decrepit.
Another thing to really kind of think about here is that a lot of CNN viewers are force-fed CNN. People have to go out and find alternative media. People have to go out and find Timcast, Daily Wire, We Are Change, and that in itself is a huge victory that we're still able to survive when, of course, in the cyber gulags, they're literally shoving it down your throats, and people are still spitting it out and saying, wait, hold on, there has to be something better, there has to be something more nutritious for my body and my mind out there that actually has some semblance of truth and responsibility in it. And that's when they find other people and they're making it more and more difficult for them to find us, but people still are, thankfully.
Because I think that the corporate media is really fighting with their free market right now, which is really interesting to me because they're trying to throttle it, and I'm a little bit concerned that the next step is going to be something like a government monopoly. Like, that genuinely concerns me, watching the collusion between the Democrats and the corporate media, as Luke reminds us to call it. It's very, very troubling to me to watch and see the reflection that the parents in Loudoun County are talking about, how this very much reminds me of the Cultural Revolution in China. And I can't imagine that the government was exactly, easy on the media when they were trying to compel every single person in the country to conform with their will. So I'm not sure what the next step is, but it's a little bit unsettling.
Yeah, state media crackdown. You got to watch out for that.
Yeah,
I've explained it several times as this. There's this big island we're on. It's just sheer cliff on all sides, and you have people on the right side of this. The waves crash, the cliff erodes,
right,
and the far right falls into the ocean. What's next is conservatives. The waves crash, the cliff erodes, the conservatives all fall in. Then you've got, moderate, slightly center-right individuals, then the centrists, and what's left is going to be people who believe anyone to the right of Mao is far right.
Yes.
That's who's going to be left standing.
Exactly.
Or, to be fair, a gigantic corporate, monolith saying, you guys are useful idiots for us. We accept that.
Well, I'm a little bit concerned because I'm going to make kind of an esoteric reference here, but there's a poem by, I think, William Butler Yeats where it's called The Second Coming, and he talks about how the worst are full of this ridiculous intention, and they have this strong desire to commit these worst acts, and the best are just silent. And he says in that poem that the center cannot hold. That is so interesting to me because I've heard the expression, if you stay in the center of the road, you're going to get run over. So I wonder if these values that the center holds, it's possible that the edges are being whittled away enough and that their beliefs are weak enough that they're just going to,
there
collapse.
was a left and a right in this country, and it started to split further and further apart. There's an amazing graph by Pew Research where it shows from 1994 till today how the left and the right have moved, and the right has moved a teeny bit to the right, and the left has shot super far left. At that point, I always thought it's okay, well, we're really polarized. When in reality, what actually happened is it got so far that it broke off into two different realities.
Yeah, and that's the thing. There is no center or moderate position anymore because in between that is sort of like an abyss. And you look at the issue that I've written this book about, Johnny the Walrus, at JohnnyTheWalrus.com, is just like this because there's a question here. Okay, can a 4-year-old boy be a girl if he says that he is? And the answer to that question is either yes or no. There's no in between. Well, I'm kind of moderate on that. Biology, your biological sex, that's either a reality or it's not. And so many issues are like this now, where you really have to choose. It's a time of choosing, and you have to decide. I'm either on the side of reality or not. I don't think there's a moderate position.
This is what's been happening. I mean, this is a really good example that when you had who was that professor who was debating Jordan Peterson? Nicholas Matt, was that his name?
Yeah, that person.
So this professor who was in Canada said there's no such thing as biological sex. That's a misconception, and I would break that down, but in the interest of time, I won't. There are people who genuinely say things like that. Now, as we were talking about earlier, people don't question their reality. So if you have people who are born being told the moon is made of cheese, their whole life, they would never question it. It's the interesting thing about I grew up Catholic for several years, and then my family left the church. But I actually could understand faith-based arguments on the nature of reality. Why? Well, there's a lot of great philosophers in many of these religions. So when you actually come with a really with an actual religion, many of them I think are kind of out there. Some of them have very interesting, intelligent thinkers. Then I look at wokeism and it's just garbled nonsense that makes no sense. But these people act as though they're part of a giant religion. It's a non-theistic religion.
I think I would even draw, I don't know if this is a real definitional distinction or not, but there's a difference between a religion and a cult. And I would look at wokeists or whatever we want to call them. It's more of a cult. It's kind of like Scientology, because the thing about a religion, say the Christian religion, for example, is that it has a lot to say about the world, about human nature, that even if you're not part of that religion, you can still understand and gain something from it. You don't have to be a Christian to read the Gospels and derive something from it and find it quite beautiful and useful. Whereas this wokeist stuff, I mean, I just, on my show, I read there was this, I forget who shared it, but it was a gender studies master's thesis from the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee that someone found online, and they just shared it, and just the intro of it. And it's woke, CRT garbage, but it makes no sense at all. It's this like insular thing where you have to be in it to even understand what they're talking about. So if you're not with a real religion, you can gain some wisdom from it, even if you're not in it. With the cult, like Scientology, you have to be in it first to be indoctrinated into their kind of logic to even know what the hell they're trying to say.
Non-white is a good word. You got to learn the definition of before you can start to understand the language.
One phrase that was used in this thing was the phrase anti-racist racist.
Yes.
And it's just
right.
It means nothing. It makes no sense. But you have to be first. You have to be indoctrinated into the cult first, and then you kind of can make sense of it.
This is kind of what I was meaning to get to, right? Like, or trying to explain with a good example is V for Vendetta. Love this movie. When Evie goes to that comedian's house and he shows her his secret, room where he's got, I think it's gay porn or something like that.
Yeah, it's
because he's like, if the police found out I had this.
Yeah.
And she also says, "Is that a Quran?" Mm-hmm. She's like, "But you're not Muslim." And he says, "I don't need to be Muslim to find its stories moving or its imagery beautiful or something like that." And that's a great point. I don't think you have to believe in the religion to read it and understand some of the ideas, to agree or disagree with some of these things. But when I've tried reading woke thesis, reports or whatever, or like scientific, I don't know, humanities, whatever you call
academic
them.
stuff.
Academic studies. It's like, they'll say something like, extrapolating the anti-whiteness of white reasoning in white supremacist agriculture through the medieval archetypes. And you're like,
it doesn't mean anything.
It doesn't.
Yeah, you need to learn the language.
No. What I'm saying is, quite literally, it doesn't mean anything. And what you get are people mindlessly saying things that don't mean anything to each other, just to try and sound like they know more than they do.
It's meant to confuse you. It's meant to have you in this state of like, what's going on? 2 + 2 = 5. Yes, it is. Of course it is. Yes. Just tell me what to believe in.
Beyond that, it's to go like this. Luke. You clearly don't understand. Look, when I wrote my thesis on the archetypal white supremacist, anti-racist, conflating with Antifa and the Wimixin of northern medieval tribes, if you don't understand that, then certainly you must step back and give me the room and the floor to speak, because you're not an expert here.
As an official person of color, I decline your...
I'm mixed race, Luke.
Oh, snap.
Well, that doesn't matter. I think I'm on the hierarchy here.
Actually, that's true.
So,
I don't
you
know
lose.
I don't know if you know this, but the Coalition for Communities of Color have said that Slavic people are people of color.
Really?
So blonde hair, blue-eyed Luke
Yeah.
Rudkowski is a person of color.
Well,
Polish,
congratulations.
Polish born. Thank you very much. I have my card. I laminated it, and I've been using it ever since.
So
Empathy
actually,
for your struggles.
Luke, I
Thank
Luke,
you, Ian.
Luke, I do defer to you on the progressive stack because I'm actually German, Irish, British, and then part Korean. So I'm actually more white, and you're Slavic, so you're all 100% person of color.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
I definitely trump you on that. But
I'll stop speaking. I'll just give you the
Thank
floor.
you very much. I mean, we should call this show what it is, the Radowski hour. But
Yeah,
anyway,
right.
no, what it is, it's also screeching. It's also a lot of emotion. It's also a lot of manipulation. And there's also no redemption in this kind of church of the cult that's being promoted on individuals that is absolutely just spewing nonsense. And I think this nonsense is done deliberately in order to acquiesce the general public into compliance, into having them on their knees, literally saying, yes, I will obey whatever crazy whims you decide for me. Because when you have someone at a state where they don't even know what they believe in, you have a state where they could be very easily controlled and manipulated at the whim of a mob that, of course, is also manipulated on social media and weaponized in a way where it creates people's actions to be manipulated by them. So I think that's an aspect here that we also should entertain with big tech's involvement in the kind of pushing of this cult.
I saw this hilarious meme, I guess, and it said, capitalism, everybody is poor and a few people are rich. Communism, nobody is rich, a few party members control everything. Socialism, anybody can be rich, but nobody is ever poor. And I was just like, man, these people are insane. But that's, I bring that up because the goal is communism and socialism. What's the difference? Honestly, very little, but there's a distinction, right? Socialism is the economic system. Communism is more the political system. Both are effectively the same thing. The means of production are owned by the people. What tends to happen is the same thing. Powerful elites gain control of everything, and then everyone is poor and suffers, and centralized planning doesn't work. But they use language manipulation to be like, we're not communists. In socialism, no one's poor.
It's literally said that the end goal of socialism is always communism. And I believe this to be the case based on what socialism does. It's very, very similar.
This is how they manipulate with language.
I know. They're good.
Thanks for checking out this segment from the Timcast IRL podcast. If you want to watch live, you can check out this channel Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. Now, don't forget to smash that like button, subscribe to this channel, and if you want more unfiltered and uncensored content with all of these guests, go to timcast.com and become a member. All of these guests you know and love in exclusive segments on our website where we are unrestricted in what we talk about, so you'll definitely not want to miss it. Thanks for hanging out. We'll see you all next time.